Alright, editors, I would like to task this, my final thoughts, to Mr. Iru. Bro cooked a absolute cinema masterpiece for finance, my final thoughts. Bro spent way too much effort to the point where our Saber guy was delayed, but I think that was absolute cinema. So I will task this. Enjoy yourself.
You serious?
俺は無限に剣を内包した世界を作る。それだけがエミやシローに許された魔術だ。ポン。
As I pray, unlimited blade works!
By the time this video goes up, hopefully you have seen all of our previous testings. Every single possible thing I could have done to Saber and Archer, I basically already did to them, right? I've done everything under the goddamn sun, and they thoroughly enjoyed it, if I can say so myself. All right, so today we are essentially gonna be talking about, you know, what I feel about their performances, their kits, team building, whether should you be pulling for Saber, do you go for the E1 Archer, future prospects, and all the kind of something similar to what we did for every single one of the final thoughts review. This video is nothing to do with the Fate event story. This video is strictly just for Saber and Archer's in-game performances for Honkai Starbucks in the different sort of scenarios that we have tested in, right? So with that being established, I think at the end of everything, I genuinely still find it absolutely insane that this guy is a free unit. This is regarding the actual cycle count, right? If we don't talk about the actual cycle count, because he's technically like you can give him the E2 sparkle, you can give him vertical supports for your investments and everything, the free light going and all the kind of stuff, whether it's free, whether it's not free, up to you guys to decide for yourself. But I think the fundamental thing is the fact that his existence gave someone a job for free 99. And I think that is the most important aspect, because Sparkle for the longest time has barely seen any play. I think aside from Acheron, just doesn't really go around anywhere else anymore. And even for Acheron, Sunday can technically also work, even though you technically get a little bit less skill points. But because of the inclusion of Archer, right, he is literally giving Sparkle a job to compete toe-to-toe with every single one of the meta support archetypes that we have, namely Sunday, Teep, Cypher, Bubbin, and etc, right? And because of this, he created the demand for people to start using Sparkle. So players that are pulled Sparkle, right? You are in the camp that already pulled Sparkle last time, and for the longest time, she has not seen play for like a super long period. God forbid you pull for E2 Sparkle back then for E2 tail. Definitely not me, by the way. But yeah, because of this scenario, you now have a much more wider diversity when it comes to team building within HSR because of these two fake collab units, right? Archer, especially because he is quite literally given for free, right? And then Saber in a similar, okay, technically Saber is not free, so if you do want to use Saber, you're gonna have to pull for bro anyways, and then she's gonna eat everything up, you know, because she is But the main thing is that for these two teams, one thing that I find it very, very enjoyable is that they don't really need a version 3 archetype. They are sort of like there to make you use your version 2s or even version 1s and give a demand to these kind of slots. So if you do want to, let's just say, use Saber and Archer, you don't have to compete for the tricycle team, right? You don't have to compete for team. You don't have to compete for Cypher. You don't have to compete for a lot of the things that the current version 3 DPSs they're all running around with, right? Your Aglayas, your Hurtas. Okay, technically Aglaya is not really counted because, you know, Barbie and Sunday, you know, your Scastervis, you know, we just got our Finon and all that. So they have less competition with them, especially for team. Especially because both Archer and Saber, although they can use team, they don't need to, right? They don't need to, especially if you do not have an E1 team. You really will barely feel any difference, which means that for players that still want to use your version 3 teams, for example, if you put for D-Herda, if you put for Casuals, all that kind of stuff, then team can easily go into that slot without compromising your experiences if you still want to run with the fake collab units. And then on the flip side, their actual performances when pairing up with these version 2 slots as well as the version 3, if you want a pseudo version 3, the wheelchair, right? It is extremely, extremely competitive with all the DPS that we have now, while at the same time not being way, way, way too strong. Because for example, right now, technically they're all the same class of DPS in 3.4, which means their direct competition is gonna be Finon. So if you do not care about Fate whatsoever, and you only care about meta, right? You're just brand new player that started playing HSR because of this collab, and I'm thinking, do you pull Archer? Do you pull Saber or do you pull Finon? They are very, very competitive with one another, and to a certain extent, they also share a very, very similar team comp. Because Finon also really wants Sunday, right? Finon wants Sunday, and he wants action value advancers, and she wants the buff. Except that if you run Finon sustainless, it is way more comfortable than any of these, because he's the only guy that, you know, if you run sustain, your damage goes up through the roof. But on the flip side for Finon is that if you do run a sustain and you don't do enough damage, it will start falling off a cliff. Whereas for Saber and Archer, both of these two units, running them with a sustain, it doesn't impact their performance as much. And I would say that it's easier to play, especially for new players that just came in. I would say for Saber, right? Saber, especially the skill point generation aspects with the extra turn and everything, it can be a little bit annoying, but the TLDR is basically try to time your extra turn only on Saber's turn. Unless you run Saber with an attack percentage boost and you slap it on with RMC or Sparkle, and then you can technically just let go of this extra turn even outside of her own turn, so that she gains a little bit more of extra value over there. Bottom line is, I think that for a performance-wise, assuming that you do have their teams more or less set up, it is really, really, really good. Really, really good unit, and for a free unit especially, this guy, bro, I just wow, you know, like if I gave the Fate event story a 2.88 out of 10, right, then this is like the opposite. It is like the direct opposite with regards to like his usage and utility for pretty much every single phase of the game. Pure Vision, honestly, I would never use him, but you can technically steal 40k if you run a tricycle. If you want to, right? If you want to. And this would then bring me to my next point of this video, which is Powercreep. Oh my god, the music is a paid actor, guys. Oh, the moment I said Powercreep, the music just like boom. Okay, yeah. So Powercreep, right? Powercreep, right? I want to talk a little bit about Powercreep with regards to the fake collab units, because as of this point, if you want to take a look at our current data bank, right? I missed every single unit in the entire game except for the one with no morals, so I'm chilling. Other than that, you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different DPS in a single version by 3.4. As of right now, most of them, they are around the same ballpark, right? They are around the same ballpark. Kazaris is still really diabolical because of the highest combination and everything. Finon, eventually, if Sarija were to come out, I think bro is also gonna get another glow up. But generally speaking, as of where it stands, there are a lot of DPS options. Really like a so many different things we do within a single version itself. And we are not even including the ones from version 2, which is, our Spring Missive Firefly, right? Girlfriend Firefly. We have Rabba, Boot Hill, Jade, Aggron, Black Swan. Oh, wait, I just realized something, guys. Holy shit, version 2 really did not give us a lot of DPS, huh? Because what I see is basically a Fei Xiao Yunli, Acheron. Yeah, Fei Xiao Yunli, Acheron, and then it's just all Super Brick. There were only really just like 3 of these DPSs. Did I miss something? Like, aside from Super Brick, it's just Fei Xiao Yunli, Acheron. Black Swan is not a crit DPS. Okay, yeah, but my point is basically right now in version 3, all of the DPS that we have seen so far, they are essentially more or less crit DPS. 3.5, we're gonna get introduced to Heisland as well as DOT, so that's gonna be another topic. So if you are a player into HSR and you are concerned with the performances of your units, especially right, you join the fake collaboration with Saber and Archer, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what have I pulled for Saber, right? And then she gets Powercreep, and then she's never gonna get used ever again, right? You have heard about the horror stories of HSR Powercreep. 1 year ago, Firefly was triple tier 0. Next year, I don't know where the hell she is anymore. Same shit happened to Jing, and like the horrors of this goddamn game, right? So I think this particular point is more so addressed to players that are really still fresh, clueless into exactly how this Powercreep thing is like HSR. So first things first, there's no PvP. I feel like the way they structure your performances in the end-game content, right, for all of your different DPSs, specifically DPSs, is that they like to change based on this almost rotational basis between single target, 3-target, AoE for Memory of Chaos. Pure Vision will always be AoE. Apex Shadows is always going to be bringing the guy as fast as possible with whatever mechanics they want to give. And even that specific mechanic, you can see the units can get shielded quite heavily. For example, Flame Reaver, you get the extra turn. Even Scylla can pop off, right? A version 1.0 DPS, all of a sudden they decide to make a boss that makes the mechanics work well with you. Your old units will suddenly become readily available again. So right now in this current scenario, the bosses that we have, they are pretty neutral bosses, right? True Sting is a very neutral boss, right? We're not going to talk about the horse. The horse is a fucking jibai, right? But the True Sting is a very neutral boss. You basically just want to kill the bugs, apply vulnerability, and then you do as much damage as possible. And then Hule is just survive, right? Survive, don't get cooked too much, you get a proper sustain, and then eventually when you break his E-rate, his I-rate stats, and he breaks Hunter's bar, it will still come crashing now. The more niche bosses, they were commonly found in version 3, specifically the War Armor on Negador and Pollux, the whatever the fuck the shell it was gonna be, right? And I feel like this is most likely going to be a case going forward in the future, where right now Saber and Archer, I feel like they are very, very neutral units that can brute force content very, very easily, because their kits are fundamentally very simplistic. It's like a League of Legends version 1, like 2014 champion, compared to a League of Legends 2025 champion, right? Their kits are very, very simple. You deal as much damage as possible while making use of your different support classes to amplify that set damage. So when it comes to interactions with like a bosses or mechanics, right, I would say maybe Archer will favor a little bit more to the skill point side, and then Saber will favor a little bit more towards the energy side, right? So once these two are basically set in their foundations, if let's just say going forward into the later half of version 3 or earlier parts of version 4, yeah, but in any case, when we are going to be getting all these brand new endgame content going forward in the future and they start shifting, I wouldn't be surprised if Saber and Archer is no longer going to be as crazy as they are right now. Even for Archer, and this unit is basically, he's a free unit. He is crazy. He's super, super good, right? A part of me is sort of thinking like maybe right now for the environments, for example, you can see that in Apex Shadows and Flame Reaver, this guy absolutely cooks Flame Reaver, right? And I have a feeling that right now, one of the performances that we see why Archer is doing so well is because that he is a free unit. And in the current environment that is True Sting, Archer can make use of True Sting's mechanics more or less quite effectively because of his huge single target burst damage, right? Even if your burst damage was not strong enough, so that's just you're a new player that just out playing and you can't really kill the True Sting, you can just start aiming the bugs. Because at least you can start to take away the bugs, and the bugs will deal the HP damage as well as giving him vulnerability, so his performances will never be that bad against True Sting. But however, because of the fact that in MOC and Apex Shadows, you can see that his performance is really, really good. in the future next time, right? Like, imagine if you want to use Archer against Pollux, and you try to slap on like your Fu Xuan with Sparkle and everything, right? Even though it's still quantum weak, it's gonna be kind of rough. Or next time, if you want to slap on Archer with Aventurine, right? Aventurine boss, which is coming next rotation, right? Aventurine boss is coming next rotation. It is gonna be kind of rough. He's gonna summon the Dices. You're gonna spend 2 skill points for 1 skill. The rest of Archer supports like Sparkle, and Sparkle is not gonna give you that. So like, the moment these bosses change, expect your unit's performances to vary drastically. So right now, I think he's doing very, very well because, you know, if a free unit right now cannot be the best of where they are, I'm not sure when are they ever gonna cook up again. So just manage your expectations when it comes to this rotating endgame content, not just for like the actual modes, but like the individual bosses within HSR. Because I believe that every single boss, they are designed with a specific target DPS to make their performances go. So for example, Hu Lei, really, really good for Yun Li, really, really good for Fei Xiao. Saber, honestly, if you have Saber's team, she's also really, really good with Hu Lei, because Hu Lei hits you very frequently, so you gain a lot of different energy, right? So that is really much the take. Not so much pertaining towards the fake characters, but just in case, you know, you're thinking, will my unit be Powercreep? Technically, the answer is like, it depends. Right? It's not a definitive yes, they will forever get Powercreep, because you have seen units that used to be super good, fell off a cliff, and then all of a sudden, randomly, if a bot, you can start using her again. Right? You can technically just use Scylla in A-Box, and she's all of a sudden available. So it just depends on like which of these different bosses are gonna come up going forward in the future, right? But I would not be surprised when you can no longer do your 0 AV, 0 cycle, 1 cycle clears with Archer or Saber going forward, right? Aside from that, let's move on to the next topic, and that is pretty much gonna be, I would say, their overall team building. First of all, E0S1. And then if you do not want to, you know, get your 200 boosts in for the light golden, that's fine, right? It's completely fine. You know, you don't really care about fate that much. Life goes on as per usual. Okay, in any case though, team building, I think the performances for Archer, if you take a look at our $10,000 billion document over here, across the board, very, very nice, right? Against True Sting, very, very nice. And even if you were to take away Sparkle with a 0 cost team, I think this was absolute cinema. So I would say Archer's team building is more flexible than what I would initially expect him, because technically this was with an E2 Sparkle. So if I were to take away the defense reduction stacking, especially with Silwolf, I wouldn't be surprised if this became a 2 cycle, right? Or maybe even like 2.5. So overall, in Archer's case, I think he is more flexible and less reliant on Sparkle than I perceive. It's just that you need to play him differently. You need to play him differently from the initial time where you're going to be running him Sparkle, because when you play Archer with Sparkle, you are just constantly slamming skill points with all of the 5 skill usage when you get Sparkle's ultimate for the full burst combo. Where if you do not use him with Sparkle, you need to start to make Archer generate his own skill points and be content with the fact that, okay, you're not going to be hitting the 5 skill usage, which is still fine, right? You just have to make it a little bit faster each individual 3 skill rotation instead of one single huge 5 skill rotation. So the moment that is going to be over and done with, I think this is so far going to be quite okay, right? For Saber, I would say for Saber, the free option is going to be a little bit more cooked. I think namely is just because Hu Lei is just a bitch, guys. I think Hu Lei is just a big bitch. So it is what it is. I do think that Saber's synergy with Sunday, arguably speaking, might be more comparable as a reliance, right? You need Sunday more than Archer needs Sparkle, if that makes sense for you. Because this is a E0 as 1 Sunday, right? This is a E0 as 1 Sunday. And then the moment we took away, okay, to be fair, this was like you know, it is what this was almost a 2, by the way. The moment we took away that E0 as 1 Sunday, I did not see a 1 cycle ever again. So all things considered, I would say that the E0 as 1 base mark for Saber, it signifies a little bit more of a importance, essentially, because I think the extra energy, extra crit rate, right? The crit rate was actually very, very good for us. Because of the fact that we get this bonus 20% crit, our builds will shift a lot. But my Saber's build, I took 1 patch. My Archer's build, I took 6 months. So my Archer is like way better than my Saber. So, you know, take a look at that build. You can see the disparity, guys. Alright? You can literally see the disparity. I'm like up like almost like, I think it's what, 30 crit value. So, you know, all things considered, it is what it is. I would say if you do want to use Saber, should you pull Sunday? I really think this is a hard decision, guys. It's honestly a hard decision because it's so tough to decide when I know for a fact that Servidra is coming out in 3.5 and I don't know what Servidra does. I still have no idea what Servidra does. And if you were to pull for a Sunday into a Saber, right? What if, you know, the cook is gonna be even better? The synergy is gonna be even better, you know what I'm saying? Because this was the exact same scenario that happened. Should I skip a Robin for Trippy? Which is what I did to my free-to-play account. I'm glad that I did, because I skipped Robin, and my free-to-play account still doesn't really care about not having a Robin. So this question of should you pull Sunday, I think it should be thought about a little bit more carefully. First things first, 3.5's pressure, namely, is just really dependent on what Servidra does. If Servidra is ass, you don't need her, I think Sunday is a really good pull. Considering right now, okay, I'm being so for real. Recently, all of the units that we have seen, a lot of them can use Sunday. Like a lot of these different units in version 3, they have shown their potential with Sunday. So if you take a look back here, right? Because it used to be like it's just teep. Now we can run Sunday with Saber. You technically can run Sunday with Archer. All of the version 1, every single version 1 crit DPS they run with Sunday. Phaseo you could run with Sunday. Unity you can run with Sunday. Aggro you can also run with Sunday. Like, as long as you are a crit DPS, I'm pretty sure Sunday can just be run with anybody, right? Finon, Anexa, Maide, Aglaya, even D-Herda, if you do not have team, you want to run Sunday, it is also completely viable. Like, bro legit can be ran with anyone. I think he can pretty much be ran with anyone as long as you are a crit DPS. Let me think if there's an exception. No, I don't think there's an exception, guys. Okay, maybe Kerala. Okay, maybe I don't know, right? But I think that Sunday's University, like, it's actually really good, all things considered. And he is not a very Eidolon dependent, right? And I think this point is, okay, this is not supposed to be before you pull Sunday or final Sunday, but his E1 is honestly not that crazy. I have a E0 Sunday since day 1. I still have not activated his E1 because I want to save it for one day. I want to save a one day when I actually read it. If you don't get this E1 compared to, for example, E1 Triby and E1 Robin, this E1's value is technically a lot cheaper, and you do have a easier way to go about it if you go for the Sunday Signature Lyco. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, that is pretty much it for the team building when it comes to the Fate units. Also, if you do have global passive, I think it will make your life a lot easier if you want to run without a 5-star sustain, right? Because Gallagher, as even Huan, right, with this kind of like dangerous endgame scenarios, can get very annoying if you just get one shot, unless you're running a Preservation Sustain. But nowadays, you haven't really seen a lot of Preservation Sustains, so we'll see where that goes. But that is pretty much it. And I want to come into the basically the final point of today's topic for the Fate units, and that is going to be your future prospects, right? Your future prospects with Archer and Saber. So what I'm guessing is going to happen, right, when this event goes away, right? The event for the light code, it will go away this patch, but you can pull for them for a pretty substantial amount of time, right? Because the banner themselves actually last for long term. And I don't know how long this is gonna be lasting, right? But what I essentially see is that the PT within these units, it carries over. It carries over. So check, hear me out, right? Long-term future prospects. Lancer, guys. Gilgamesh, you know? Or it doesn't even have to be a Fate banner unit. It could just be any collab unit, guys. Because we know for a fact there is gonna be another. This is a collab banner. They literally have a whole ass name, Character Collaboration Warp, right? So there is a collab banner, definitively speaking, right? So the most important thing when it comes to like the future aspects of these two is that know that these are. I hope that they are not ever going to be like a meta banner, if it makes sense. Like, I kind of wish that collab units don't have crazy strong meta defining archetypes. Like, for example, can you imagine if we have like a collab Teep, like a collab Teep, or like a collab Bubbin, and it's like a support, and it's like, oh my lord, bro, it's completely fucking bastard. That would be kind of crazy, because eventually, if you were to play this game long term, that banner will still go away one day, right? It will still go away one day. And for players that are playing this like for the super long, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, all that kind of stuff, right? If that banner goes away and then you are just never able to get this kind of like Teep, a collab Teep, but they balance the end game around this kind of content, that would be quite rough. Which is why I feel collab banners, it will just never ever be a meta banner, but they are more or less like an alternative. Like Saber and Archer, they are essentially alternatives to the version 3 DPS that we have right now, and they can also make use of your version 2 and even version 1 supports to construct a different team, while not really stealing the jobs from the original version 3 cast like Vinon, Herda, and everybody else, right? And I think this should be the way to go. So going forward, or all of the other collab banners, maybe they run a support, but not overwhelming the capabilities of the supports that we currently have. But most likely, I think DPS is sort of like the most fun way, because DPS is like, it makes sense to me, right? DPS is like the biggest action, the biggest booms, right? Everybody wants to pull for DPS because the DPS is the most fun, right? You see there all the flashy animations, 5 billion damage, right? All those come from DPS. And as long as it's like alternatives and a lot of DPSs in the same roster, you will feel less inclined to say, oh my god, I need to pull for every single DPS nowadays. Okay, check, can you hear, imagine, right? What if the brand new meta, right? The brand new meta for pooling in HSR, you only pull that version's support, and then you only pull for a collabs DPS. Because any DPS can work as long as you have the support, as we have clearly seen from the Trizigo team. Literally any DPS can work, right? You don't even need to optimize team building that much. If the supports themselves can come together in Honkai support rail, anyone can work. So with this brand new like way to go about it, technically you will have the best of both roles, because then you can all in vertical investment for support, and at any point of time, the moment you want to play this DPS, boom, that DPS you can go ahead and play with it, right? Even if it's not like the best in slot, most tailored custom made team for Saber or Archer, but because there's so much vertical investment on support, you are still gonna be able to enjoy the DPS, no problems whatsoever. That is pretty much my quick little final thoughts about a fake collab. In summary, I am very, 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 very happy with the actual units, not the event story, the units for Saber and Archer. If I have to pick a favorite, right? If I was given a chance to, I will get an E6 Saber, bro. Bro, E6 Saber looks so fucking bastard, bro. If I had a chance, I would get myself an E6 Saber. But, you know, we are going to be relatable. I'm never going to bring E6 DPS ever again in my entire life. This is my personal favorite W in the entirety of the fake collab. Other than that, one little note. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger. The way I am optimizing my free-to-play account, right? Because my free-to-play account, Bob, he's also like trying to be efficient, right? He's trying to like follow meta and everything. It screams to me as a free-to-play account owner, pulling for a E1 Archer might be cooking if I really, really wanted Bob to use up this DPS. I'm thinking if it's a necessity. Okay, nothing is a must, right? There's no must. But I'm thinking if this will be beneficial to the account as a whole. Because technically, I already have a Casteris, which is the Quantum DPS. But the thing is, Casteris is not really elemental coverage for Quantum. It's more like if I wanted a single target burst, right? I think E1 Archer might be really, really possible while not really competing with a characteristic team. Like my characteristics can still run RMC, Teep, and Haixin, and then my E1 Archer can run like a Sunday, Tingyun, right, and then like a Gallagher. Like it could still work. So because they don't really compete with one another, because you can run both teams at the same time, I am thinking if Bob gets themselves a E1 Archer, because this E1 Archer is like a way more of a damage upgrade compared to, for example, E1 Saber. And I don't think Bob is gonna be pulling for E0 S1 Saber, because Saber really wants this signature light cone, because that's just way too expensive. Whereas for Bob, if I just drop a E1, I basically get myself a E1 S1 DPS on the account, right? So I'll think about it a little bit more. Let me know what you guys think with the whole Fate units that is being Saber and Archer, right? Just their units, their performances, their endgame and everything. What of the day is going to be. I'm done. Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join Patreon for all of our anime reviews. Use code for 10% off all the best of. See you guys next time. Take care. Oh my god, guys, I'm finally done.